Now, before I delve into the over-the-top, crude, violent, vulgar, and surprisingly nostalgic cinematic experience that was Deadpool and Wolverine, it's been a while since you've seen this, huh? I bet that brought you back, didn't it? Hey guys, the Black Critic Guy, and just like Hugh Jackman himself, I have returned with a classic BCG-style review of the latest Marvel Studios film, Deadpool and Wolverine. God, it feels so good to say that again. Now, the premise of Deadpool and Wolverine is oddly simple, yet surprisingly complex. It follows Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool. Duh, his name's in the freaking title. And he's living in his own universe, living a very simple life. He's given up the merc with the mouth persona. He's hung up the cowl, so to speak. He's no longer the superhero he once was, although I'm pretty sure we all could argue he was never truly a superhero to begin with. And then, all of a sudden, the TVA come knocking at his door, literally, and they whisk him away. He meets a guy named Mr. Paradox, and he presents him with an offer. You can either join the MCU, aka the Sacred Timeline, or you could go back to your timeline and be deleted with the rest of your friends and everything that you knew and love. And of course, we all know which one Deadpool chooses. Why, to join the MCU? Obviously, the end. No, I'm just kidding. He obviously is going to fight for his own timeline to keep it alive. Now, the reason his timeline is being deleted is because the anchor being for his universe is dead. And I'm pretty sure you can guess who the anchor being is. I'll give you a hint. His name's in the title as well. So, remember Logan? Yeah, that Logan was the anchor being for Deadpool's universe. And if we all remember 7 years ago, he's dead now. And because of that, the TVA, or at least Mr. Paradox, has decided that this universe is no longer needed. We're going to delete it, but we want to keep Deadpool. You come here, right? And so now Deadpool is trying to basically fight to keep his own universe alive with the help of another Wolverine from another universe. And from there, wacky, crazy, balls to the walls insanity ensues. Now, it should really go without saying that I was looking forward to this film. Hell, I feel like most of the world was looking forward to this film ever since the announcement back in 2022. When we saw Ryan Reynolds sitting in that damn couch talking about whatever he was talking about, then we see Hugh Jackman in the background. He's like, "Hey Hugh, would you play Wolverine one more time?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, Ryan." And we all got excited, myself included. And so the day has finally come. The movie has been released here on Guam, and I have now seen it. So what do I think about it? Let's get into it. Without question, the best thing about this film was Hugh Jackman's performance as Logan, aka the Wolverine. He was absolutely phenomenal. And I'm not over-exaggerating. He was phenomenal in this film. He literally has not lost a step. Not at all. He fell back into this role with such ease. It felt like he never left. And the last time he played Wolverine was 7 years ago. It feels like it was just yesterday he was playing the character. That's how seamless he was in this role. He has already been the most perfect Wolverine ever brought to screen, but the fact that he could fall back into the role flawlessly, I mean, my goodness. There are 2 scenes with him in it that just blew me away because of how he delivered the line and just overall the tone of the scene. And I won't spoil what the scenes were, but one of them takes place in a car and another one takes place by a campfire. Those made the movie for me, honestly. Those were some of the best performances in the film. And it was both by Hugh Jackman. And another thing I loved about his performance, he is obviously the straight man in this wacky comedy following 2 guys that literally cannot die. And he does not play Wolverine like he's a caricature. He doesn't phone it in. He doesn't play him up like a joke. You would have thought, because this feels like a cash grab, that he would just phone in this performance. Maybe he might even be a little bit more goofy and wacky with the character. No. Pure dedication. I truly mean pure dedication. You could tell Hugh Jackman came back in this role and told himself, I'm not going to sell this cheap. I'm not going to phone it in. I'm going to treat this as if this was just another X-Men or another Wolverine film, even though it takes place in the Deadpool universe, or it takes place in like a Deadpool story. And I love that. I love the fact that Hugh Jackman took this seriously. And it really paid off, because his performance was the standout performance in this film. And hats off to him. Like, seeing him in this movie truly made me miss him as Wolverine. I didn't know how much I missed him until I saw him again as Wolverine. It's going to be a really, really sad day, and it's coming sooner rather than later, when he no longer can or will play Wolverine again. But it was so good to see him in this role, and he freaking nailed it. He knocked it out of the park, and then some. In fact, I would say that a majority of the performances in this film were good. There were like 2 performances I felt like were lackluster, and I was kind of disappointed by their performance. But other than that, everyone did a pretty good job. Of course, Ryan Reynolds is still really good as Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool. The guy that plays Peter, oh man. When I saw him in that trailer, I was so happy. Because Peter really was my favorite character in Deadpool 2. Like, no joke, I love Peter. I did grow into liking Deadpool and Wolverine's bonding throughout the film. At first, I did feel like it was very forced. I wasn't truly buying it, which I honestly think that might have been the intention. Because literally, Deadpool just pulls a random Wolverine from a random universe, drags him on a merry adventure, and says, hey, pal, it's like good old times. And this Wolverine's like, who the fuck are you? I've never met you. You don't exist in my universe. What are you doing here, right? So that's why it felt kind of forced at first. But as the film went on, I did feel like they had built a strong bond. I did feel like they built some form of camaraderie. They grew as characters, both of them, and in so they actually grew closer as, I wouldn't say friends, I would say nice acquaintances, I guess, is the best way I could put it. By the end of the film, I guess I did buy that these two were pretty tight, pretty cool with each other, and I like that. And I like just seeing Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, who are friends in real life, getting to act alongside each other as their most iconic characters. It was a hoot to see. Speaking of fun, let's actually get to the main thing you guys really want to know about. The action. Is it gruesome? Is it bloody? Is it entertaining as hell? Yeah, for the most part, it does live up to my expectations. Yes, there were some obvious green screen moments. There were some obvious CGI action scenes. There was also some shaky cam moments, or moments where there's so much happening on the screen, I can't keep up with who's fighting who died, who made that hit. It was kind of hard to gather what was happening on the screen. But for the most part, the action here was really, really fun to watch. And yes, they do not hold back. This film it's pretty gruesome. I mean, there's a lot of dick shots. This guy's getting literally stabbed in the face. There are people getting stabbed in the heart multiple times. I mean, just the fight between Deadpool and Wolverine alone, and there are multiple moments of that in the film, is enough to warrant this film getting an R rating. I mean, it gets fucking gruesome. In fact, if you thought this film was gonna hold back punches, the opening scene of the film would prove that wrong. I mean, they address something that all of us were thinking about when they announced this film. They address it right off the bat. And not only do they address it, they address it in the most Deadpool way. And I must say, not only was it over the top, not only was it extremely disrespectful, but it was so fulfilling, and it was perfect, especially for who we're talking about here. We're talking about Deadpool. That was the most Deadpool thing Deadpool did in the movie, in my opinion. That opening act, that opening fight scene, and I must say, very creative. I liked what he used in that fight scene. I really did, because he was really creative about what he could do with that material. And I'm sure you've already heard it, but yes, there are a ton of cameos in the film. Hell, the film itself addresses it in the first 15 minutes that there's going to be a ton of cameos. And for the most part, a lot of them I really enjoyed. And there were a few that really surprised me. Two in particular. The first cameo, the literal first cameo in this film. When I saw who this person was, I knew exactly where they were going to go with this scene. I knew exactly where they were going to go with this scene. The moment I saw this person, I'm like, I know what character that person's playing, and it's going to be this big reveal like, oh, that's not what I thought it was. Yep. And I freaking called it. And I knew it was coming, and I still found it funny. I appreciated seeing this person play this role again. It's been so many years, and it was kind of funny. I liked this rendition of that character that they played. And then the second cameo was a cameo of a character that this person had always wanted to play, but never got a chance to play this character until now. They were finally given the chance to do a performance of this character on the big screen, and I'm actually kind of happy for them. They were fighting for so many years to play this character. They were campaigning, and finally, they got their chance to shine. Was the performance the best? Not really. I mean, there's some parts of the performance that were great, and then there were some where I'm like, okay, you're kind of milking it now. But the fact that this person got a chance to play this character that they've been trying to play for, it almost feels like a decade. I'm just happy they got the chance to do it, and I thought they did a pretty solid job. Alright, so I've addressed a lot of the great things about this film. Unfortunately, it's time for me to talk about the issues plaguing Deadpool and Wolverine. And the biggest issue with this film, in my personal opinion, were the villains. They sucked ass. I mean, they were not intimidating. They weren't a threat. They were really lackluster, honestly. And look, none of the Deadpool villains have ever really been that good, minus Ajax, or I should say Francis. But, I was hoping that maybe we would get a really interesting, enticing, enthralling, and maybe even a humorous villain. We were given a bunch of them in this film, and none of them truly stood out to me. I didn't care about a single one of them. I didn't find them interesting. I didn't like these characters. The worst of them all was the first villain we're introduced to, Mr. Paradox. This guy, he's just a bean counter. Literally, just a bean counter. He has no powers. He feels like a fucking weasel. And look, the guy that plays him is a really, really good comedic actor. But this movie did him no service. They did him no justice. I mean, the minute this guy shows up, I thought, okay, maybe there's something interesting with his name. His name is Mr. Paradox. What if he can create paradoxes and that's how he throws Deadpool in a loop? Nope. He's just like this little smarmy looking guy, and he's like, I'm gonna do this, right? And then there was the secondary villain that shows up later on in the film. I won't spoil who it is, but let me just say this. Where they were going with that villain, I liked. The villain was intimidating. They were intriguing. There was an interesting backstory to the villain. They even had purpose for their action. And then when the third act kicks in, I kid you not, they all of a sudden just turn into a Saturday morning cartoon villain. Like, I'm evil and I'm going to destroy the world. I'm going to make the whole universe disappear and only my universe exists. That's really what they ended up becoming. And I was stunned. I was flabbergasted. I'm like, what happened to that interesting villain? Why am I getting this cartoon character all of a sudden? And the way that this villain is defeated is so underwhelming. It's bad. It's really bad. It wasn't even like a final confrontation. It was just like, oh, this one thing happened and then boom, they're gone. And I'm like, that's it? That's how we thwart the other villain, the secondary villain? Wow, all that build up with such an unsatisfying climax. Shame on you, Deadpool. You should know better. You should know better than to give me such an unfulfilling climax, knowing who you are. By the way, speaking of that third act, man, that third act was like a roller coaster ride. There were some high moments, and then there were some low moments, and there were some high moments again, then there were some low moments. It just kept going up and down. And overall, I would say the third act was kind of underwhelming. Just how it all concluded. It felt very cheap. It felt very forced and shoehorned in. Like they just wanted to get to the finish line. They didn't care how they got there, so they threw in a bunch of cliches. They turned characters from interesting characters to Saturday morning cartoon villains. I was underwhelmed by the third act. Again, there were some amazing moments, but overall, it was lackluster. And speaking of underwhelming, I would also say that the writing of the film was very much underwhelming. Mainly focused on, sophomore humor, crass jokes, silly shenanigans, cameo appearances, but there's not much to the writing. And I get it. It's a Deadpool film. We're not here for excellent writing, but god damn it, just some good writing. And yes, there were some well-written scenes, some well-performed scenes, and I just wish the film just had more of that. I wish it was a little bit more consistent in the writing. And speaking of consistency, the jokes. Maybe it's because the appeal of Deadpool addressing the audience and the vulgar humor has kind of worn thin because we've seen it like 2 times already. But like, some of these jokes just didn't hit as hard as I thought they would hit. And I feel like if I watched it a second time, they would hit even less now that I know what the punchline's going to be. I don't know. I felt like the humor relied way too much on vulgarity this time, and there was not much wit or like really clever lines and things like that. Not only that, I felt like there was a lot of, and this is where that MCU starts seeping in, there was a lot of MCU style humor in this film with like a sprinkle of Deadpool seasoning on top of it. Because there'll be these moments where it feels like they're just quipping and it's going on forever and forever and forever. And I'm just like, can we wrap this scene up? Can we wrap the joke is dead now. This moment is not funny. Move on. And going back to the writing, there were so many scenes, especially in the second act, that felt like they just dragged on for far too long. Like it meandered and meandered. Like it slowed the pacing of the film down tremendously. And I'm sitting there in the theater like, this is freaking Deadpool and Wolverine.
Let's fucking go. Let's fucking go.
Exactly, Logan. Stop wasting our time and let's keep this thing going. Why are we dragging these scenes out? And lastly, let's address the Deadpool variants, shall we? Yes, I know you knew there were going to be Deadpool variants. The TVA were mentioned in this movie, and we all know what they're in control of, and we already knew he was going to different universes trying to find Logan. So obviously, we were going to bump into some Deadpool variants. And outside of 1, possibly 2, I would say 2. I would consider them both like a package deal, but let's just say 2. Outside of 2 of the Deadpool variants, all the other Deadpool variants were really underwhelming. And I get it. There wasn't much time to really spend with all of them. But I don't know. I felt like there was a huge opportunity missed with these Deadpool variants. They'd show up, they have an action scene, and then that's it. You don't really see much from them. And I'm like, really? That's it? There's no, like, witty comebacks. They're not like all trying to one-up each other or talking over each other, because that's the whole point of Deadpool. They never shut the fuck up. Like, it would have been interesting if the battle between, like, the Deadpool variants wouldn't be like a fight scene because they're all immortal. It'd be funny if it was like them all trying to see who could talk over the other. Now, that would have been funny. That would have been hilarious. But no, they show up, they get into a fight, and then it's over. Like, then we don't see them again. Like, man, that kind of sucked. I wish they could have done more. In fact, now that I speak of it, you know who else should have been in the movie more? Peter. I'm not even joking. It would have been nice to see this guy more. He's in like 4 scenes in the movie, and they're all relatively short. Come on. I mean, it's Peter. Come on. He could be in the movie more. Overall, I would describe my experience with Deadpool and Wolverine to be a fascinating yet very short roller coaster ride. A lot of ups, a lot of downs. There were moments that kind of dragged a little bit or could have been a little bit more thrilling. And overall, the climax, the ending, did kind of leave a sour taste in my mouth. But I still thoroughly had fun with the ride. There were a lot of things that I took out of the film that, honestly, I wouldn't mind experiencing again. And that's why I would say Deadpool and Wolverine is an enjoyable film. And if you're a fan of the Deadpool franchise, if you're a fan of Wolverine, if you're a fan of the X-Men, if you're a fan of like over-the-top, violent, chicanery, over-the-top violence, there's no reason not to go see Deadpool and Wolverine. It's a lot of fun. Not to mention the very sincere tribute that they give to 20th Century Fox and their history with the X-Men franchise. That was awesome. That was honestly amazing. It was really touching. It was great to see at the end, and I applaud Disney for doing it. But overall, yeah, if you are into any of those things I just mentioned, go check out Deadpool and Wolverine. But I'm not the end-all, be-all opinion when it comes to Deadpool and Wolverine. As always, I would love to know what you guys thought about the film. Did you really enjoy it? Did you get a kick out of it? Did it live up to all of your expectations? Or were you like me and you found it to be rather entertaining, but there were some parts that they could have worked on or they could have done better with? Or did you just find it to be an overall underwhelming and terrible experience? Comment below. Let me know. God, it feels like ages since I've said that. It really does feel good to do this again. I mean, I'm going to hate myself for being up at literally 12 in the morning editing this video, but it is really nice to get to do this once again, and hopefully, maybe in the future, I will do this. Oh, I also had a question. What's a team-up that you would like to see? We saw Deadpool and Wolverine now. We've seen the Avengers. What's the next team-up you would like to see? Captain America and Superman, Batman and the Ninja Turtles, who will it be? Comment below, let me know. I can't promise you that this will be a reoccurring thing. Maybe it might just be a one-off, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I enjoyed making it. It felt really good to do this again, and who knows, maybe I will do it again. But until that next video comes, guys, if you would like to see more videos on this channel, be a part of the Black Critic crew, please hit that subscribe button below. Like this video if you really enjoyed it. And I'm Tony Wild II, the Black Critic Guy. Till then, peace, YouTube.